Hey everybody, how are you? My name is Emily and welcome back to my channel where I review, critique, and summarize scary children's books. Hi everybody, it's me. If you haven't noticed, I have been on hiatus for the entire summer while I work on a lot of projects. Work is not in short supply in my life, and not that I'm complaining, I'm happy to be doing a lot. It's just that it eats into my time to do fun things like read and make videos for this channel, which I love. But I'm finally back for a video, and it's spooky season, and there's so much to talk about, so let's go. So today in this video, I am going to be talking about Elizabeth Addams. This is an indie YA ghost story written by an author named LeaAnn Armstrong. I received a free copy of this book in exchange for my honest review, so here we go. I don't know why I'm holding it like this, but there you go. So in this video, I'm going to summarize the book for you, followed by a brief review. I'll let you know what I think of the story and the characters, etc. And then finally, I'll end the video with my personal scores. So I always score a book based on writing and language, story, scares, and my personal score. So make sure to stick around until the end of the video if you want to see those. All right, so Elizabeth Addams follows our title character, Elizabeth, as she discovers the ghostly hauntings in her grandparents' large family home. We see two times in Elizabeth's life. The first when she's 12 and her family has come to this large house to gather for a family reunion after the death of her grandparents. And second, we see her when she's a little bit older and the family has gathered for a funeral. Both timelines include ghostly sightings, hauntings, lots of paranormal activity, even some possession. Over the course of the story, Elizabeth comes to understand that the house's hauntings, and by extension her family's hauntings, are far more complex and run far deeper than she originally thought. Alright, so I'm going to start with the things that I enjoyed about this book. I am a sucker for a good ghost story, as you all know, and the author has crafted some ghostly elements that really hit the mark for me. Some of her scenes are very cinematic. The image that I got in my head when I was reading reminded me a lot of the ghost-themed movies that I've seen, and you know, I love to make those connections. There are a few really creepy moments too. There's one that really stuck out for me when Elizabeth is outside the house and she turns and looks at the house from some distance away and sees a ghost looking at her from every single window. That part gave me a little bit of a chill up my spine, this idea of all these faces looking out at her. Elizabeth also has a bit of a creepy and mysterious friend named Emily who seems to know more about the house than we think. So I found a few parts with Emily to be quite intriguing and creepy because you just don't know what this girl is up to. In terms of characters, I really enjoyed being inside of Elizabeth's head for the duration of this story. When the timelines first shift and we start to see Elizabeth when she's a little bit older, I was worried that her voice sounded exactly the same, but as I went on in the story, I learned that older Elizabeth has a bit of an attitude. So I really appreciate the author's effort to make them sound different and to show Elizabeth's growth and change over the course of her life. There's also quite a few supporting characters here in terms of Elizabeth's family that come and gather in this house for their family reunion. So we have aunts and uncles, Elizabeth's parents, her dreaded cousin Marcus, etc. I did have some trouble keeping them apart. However, a lot of the supporting characters do have a lot of details about them that the author provides, so that can help readers out a little bit. I think what I found actually most interesting about this story is this kind of overarching idea that the author points to a couple of times, that Elizabeth has free reign in this house because there's so many people in it. The house is so populated that she actually is kind of rendered invisible. With everyone around, she just disappears, so she can kind of do whatever she wants, which includes going into the attic and playing with a spirit board, for example. It's kind of the Kevin McAllister effect, if you will. I know it's way too early to be talking about Christmas movies, but I was thinking about that as I was reading. And I thought it's a really interesting take considering that a lot of haunted house or creepy ghost stories of this kind take place in a massive house that is largely empty. There's something really creepy about being one of only a few people in this huge empty house. And yet in this story, we have Elizabeth inside a house that's very populated and still the author is able to deliver the scares. So that was a really interesting take. So on to the places where I thought there could be some improvements made. So first and foremost, I think that the book could definitely benefit from a really close edit. First on the developmental level and then on the copy editing level. So in terms of developmental edits, there are points where the story seems to meander and kind of get lost within itself. There are a number of story threads that are created at the beginning that are never really followed up with. And as a reader, it made me wonder what happened to this or that, or what that foreshadowing that happened at the beginning really meant. Whether this thing that was heavily implied will ever return again. And there's a twist at the end of the book that took me by surprise, but unfortunately that's a good and a bad thing. I liked being surprised at the end, but there weren't enough logical clues threaded throughout the rest of the story to make it feel satisfying to me. There were a few clues, but there weren't enough for me to say, oh, okay, that makes sense at the end. On the copy editing level, I think the book could really benefit from an editor going through it with a fine-toothed comb. There's missing punctuation, grammar issues, typos, etc. Personally, I am not a super strict grammarian. As a reader though, I would hope that there's enough of an adherence to some of those fundamental rules just to make it so that the book isn't a lot of work to read. I did find that that was the case with this book, unfortunately. There just was too much for me to enjoy it all the way through. So overall, although I did enjoy parts of the story, there are those nuts and bolts things that held back my enjoyment of it. So with all of that in mind, I'm going to give Elizabeth Addams a 5 out of 10 for writing and language and a 6 out of 10 for story. I think the seeds of a really good book are here. I just think that it needs a couple more pairs of eyes on it. I also did enjoy a lot of the ghostly elements, and especially that one cool idea that I hope the author takes and runs with if they decide to write a sequel or a companion novel, which I hope they do. In terms of scares, I'm going to give the book a 6 out of 10. It isn't overly scary, but it is fun and spooky for the season. And finally, I'm going to give Elizabeth Addams a personal score of 5 out of 10. I hope you guys can pick up something spooky like this before Halloween, before we hit October. If you want to read it, now's the time, right? Alright, so that is it for my review today. Thank you guys so much for watching and so much for sticking with me after this long hiatus. If you liked the video, go ahead and give it a like and let me know in the comments below what you are reading for the Halloween season. What is on your TBR? I'm gonna watch everybody's videos, but if you have something you want to tell me about, please let me know. I'm accepting recommendations for spooky kids books to read. I'm always accepting recommendations for things to read, let's be real. And if you want to follow me on social media, all the links are always below. I've got my Twitter handle there, as well as my Letterboxd and Goodreads. Alright guys, so that is all she wrote. So thank you so much for watching, and again, thank you for sticking with me after all this time. I'm gonna make another video very soon. I've got a lot lined up to read in October, so I am very much looking forward to talking to you guys about it. And until then, I hope you have a great end of September, and happy reading.